Hi everybody, it's Dana. Good morning. Wanted to chat with you a little bit today about the liver and liver cleansing. If you followed me for a while, you probably hear me mention this periodically. And again, I'll start this, and say I'm not a veterinarian, but I have learned a whole bunch of stuff in my years of doing fostering and training and now nutrition and aromatherapy and homeopathy and the whole bit. So I learned about this a number of years ago and really wish I had learned about it with my own Great Dane, because I believe he would have tremendously benefited from this in his behavioral issues. But the liver is such an important organ to our dog's health, to your own health for that matter, but for our purposes, we're talking about dogs. And what I have seen and understand now is the connection that it has to our behavior. So again, if we look at this Chinese medicine thing, we will hear that anxiety lives in the kidneys, anger and aggression live in the liver. But even when we look at anxiety, fear, things of that nature, there can be an association into the liver because they're so tightly intertwined. And the liver has such an important function in the body. It manages about 400 different things for us. Some of the most simple things are that it has to process the fat, it has to process all the chemicals that our body is exposed to, it stores vitamin and minerals, it does a lot of things that are extremely beneficial. So we need to take care of it, and we need to help it do its best work. So some of the things that can start to burden the liver, and sometimes it's immediate, and sometimes it's this compounding effect. And the compounding effect is where a lot of people don't really take it seriously, right? They're like, I've never had a problem before, or I've used these products for years without an issue. And that's awesome, but it does not mean that internally we are not starting to see a burden and what we might call sluggishness or ineffectiveness, or something that is really creating a challenge that will in turn present things that are occurring as a result of it, right? So going quote unquote toxin free is a big deal, and I really want all of you to think about how you can start to eliminate as many of those things as you can. It's things like flea and tick medications, orals, topicals, or otherwise, even the collars that people use. They're all chemicals that are basically putting something into your dog's bloodstream in order for it to work. So things running through the bloodstream that are basically a toxin is not a good long-term thing. Even though you've never had a problem to date, does not mean something is not becoming problematic and perhaps even really detrimental. So flea and tick medications, yard chemicals, even walking through your neighbor's yard who sprays when you don't. I've noticed that since I've moved down here in doing the Zytoscans with my dogs, seeing some things that are showing up in their systems. It can be the burden of sugar on the diet. It can be the burden of gluten in the diet. Vaccines are certainly a burden on the liver. I'm not telling you to not get them. I have content out there that talks about what I do as alternative protocols, the timing of them, and the distribution of them, how they're spaced out. And then also what I do when I have to have them administered to support the immune system in advance, the day of, and for up to 3 weeks or maybe more, depending on the dog, after. So there's a lot of things that we can do to support the liver, and a lot of things that we ought to eliminate just in general to support our dog's health. What you might start to see as a function of things that could indicate, this is not a diagnostic thing, but something that could indicate that there is a reason to consider doing a liver cleanse, might be if your dog has allergies, might be if your dog is showing inflammation, even joint pain, muscle pain, slowing down at a time that perhaps is considered premature, chronic infections, sort of this cycle of infections that keep recurring, autoimmune disorders, cancer is a potential issue. Even if we look at dogs that perhaps are, in humans we would call it perspiring. In our dog, we might look at a dog that is excessively panting at a time when it's not hot, panting at a time when it's not exercising. So a lot of us will look at that and go, is that anxiety? Is that stress? It could be related to that, but it could be also related to a function of what's happening inside the body. Dogs that have difficulty learning or seem to be difficulty retaining knowledge. There's a blog post that I wrote several years ago about a little dog named Bentley, and we really thought he had a learning disability, and it proved to be kind of what I'm talking about here with his diet, his nutrition, and things that he had been exposed to. So all of those things can be indicators, again, not diagnostic, but perhaps indicators of a need to look at doing a dietary cleanup, but also cleansing and supporting the liver. I tend to recommend to my clients that we do this at least once a year, sort of a big cleanse, and then some maintenance things on a quarterly or at least a semi-annual basis. When I get a client now who comes to me with aggression, doesn't matter if it's resource guarding or biting people, right? Even reactivity. We start looking at the diet, and we start looking at, is this a potential consideration? I do this with dogs who have allergies, who are struggling with allergies, and I'll look at this with dogs even who have anxiety. And there are a couple of different approaches, and I pick and choose that based on a lot of conversation with the owner and a lot of trying to make some general assessments about what we see and what we know, and whether we choose a approach that is very slow, very gentle, which might be a single supplement that starts really sort of easing our way forward, or whether we jump in and do a complete dietary cleanup, a 3-week diet that is very cleansing, that includes supplementation and includes essential oils and homeopathy in a very structured protocol that lasts, well, the first phase is about 3 weeks, but the next parts of that is about a month long. And so, again, it depends on the individual animal whether we sort of go very gentle into this, or whether we feel like we can sort of really do a deep dive into the cleanse and the detox, if you will, and really sort of start pushing through some changes. And then what do we do to sustain that? And so I'm not going to give a lot of the details about how, because there are too many it depends. And I don't want to throw things into a loop for people and they try something that doesn't work, or they try something that either was way too fast or way too slow and they're not really seeing the results, or they don't understand. what they're looking at. But I will tell you that I have found significantly better results in my aggression and my anxiety cases when I do this. They feel, I don't want to say faster because we can't force things to go faster, but when the dog feels better, he acts better, right? And so if we can take a look at those things, it's super beneficial. And then we tend to have more sustainability, where if we can keep everything that's in that dog's system in balance, including his emotions and including gut health and all that makes him feel normal and makes him feel like he can do dog things, then we tend to have a whole lot better results. So I'm a big fan of this process, this protocol, and I use it quite a lot. The diet was created by a veterinarian, and so we leverage that. Certainly the owner has some options as to how they feel about this, and I'll guide a lot of things based on their feelings and expectations. And again, a lot of it's going to be based on what is the current status of that dog's overall health. And certainly when we need to, the veterinarians need to be consulted and guided and stuff. But things like the homeopathy, they're pretty easy to use. They're very affordable. And what we know from typical homeopathy work is that even if we were to choose the wrong remedy, right? Even if we pick the wrong thing, it's not going to create harm in the body. It just won't do what we thought it was going to do. It just won't create a result. But there's been some pretty amazing things that happen. And so I like using that. And then I'm definitely all about the essential oils. So I might use some internal supplements and then some supplements that support the liver. Some essential oils that support the liver and some essential oils that support the emotions that are associated with the liver, and see some pretty powerful and amazing results. So I just wanted to introduce this concept to you, this idea, and have you think about, again, do you have a dog with allergies? Do you have a dog with anxiety or aggression? One that acts in a way that is not typical to their age, typical to their breed. There's something just sort of off kilter about it. Doesn't mean the dog's broken or sick, just means it's not quite in alignment with the norm. Those might all be indicators. If your dog has been a long-term flea and tick user, yard chemical user, not good shampoo product users, go watch my video on grooming products and what they can be problematic. So again, all those things land in the liver and it has to process them. Vaccines, long-time vaccine users, or even the most recent vaccine user, could stand to support the liver after the fact. If you're headed into vaccine scheduling, there is work you can do in advance and following. And it's super, super important that you do that to help support your dog's body as we do these things. So again, I'm rambling now and I'm going to stop, but it is what can we eliminate? What can we do protectively? And then what can we do sort of in this cleanse and detox space that may help us get our dog's health and or behavior moving into a better direction. So if this rings a bell with you and you think this is something that might be beneficial, let's schedule time to chat. Okay, we will talk to you soon. Hi, Judith.